Hi everyone, so today we're going to be talking about the pros and cons about vaccinations. And as you know, vaccinations have been a huge talk in this country for about a few years now, but now because of COVID-19, vaccinations have been more of a huger talk because a lot of people believe that vaccines are fake, they can give you a lot of side effects. One that most people talk about is autism, and there's always two sides of vaccinations. One side is people that are anti-vaxxers, and then there's the other side about people that are for vaccines and they think vaccines are always safe and they do really good to your health overall in general. So before we talk about the pros and cons on vaccinations, there has been many talks and discussions about vaccinations, and immunizations can have its ups and downs, but vaccinations factors how you live in today's society. So before we talk about the pros and cons, I want to talk about the history of vaccinations. So the practice of immunizations dates back hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And Edward Jenner was considered to be the founder of vaccinology in the West around the late 1700s. The plague vaccine was also invented in the late 19th century. Between 1850 and 1950, bacterial vaccines were developed and they were prohibited. And viral tissue culture methods were developed around 1950 to 1985, which led to the event of the polio vaccine. Now, I'm going to be talking about the pros on vaccines. So one huge pro is that vaccines, they protect children from diseases such as the flu, the polio disease, measles, the whooping cough, and so much more. Vaccines are very safe and effective from ages ranging from toddlers to elderly. And when more people get vaccinated, when more people get vaccinated, fewer people will catch a disease or a deadly virus. Although vaccinations can be costly, they can save a lot of your time and they can save a lot of your money. And also, vaccines are also important to your overall health, diet, and exercise. And lastly, when you're getting the proper recommended vaccinations, it will keep you healthy. And according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, aka CDC, when you skip vaccines, you as a person are more at a high risk of catching a very deadly disease. Now, I'm going to be talking about the cons on vaccinations. So one con is parents should get to decide what treatments their children should and should not get as the recommended vaccinations. And certain laws in certain states state that when a child is unvaccinated from different kinds of vaccines, it can prevent them to going to a public school or even going to a university. So it should be the children to decide if they want to get vaccinated. It shouldn't be the parents that should decide. And a lot of parents feel very pressured to get their kids vaccinated. And one other con is that they can cause side effects. Most side effects include the soreness of the injection site, which is very common to a lot of people. And this is very rare, but some people can get allergic reactions to a vaccination. And although it's super rare, it can happen. There is no vaccine on this planet that has 100% of protection in your body. So what that means is that when they make vaccines around the world, they always have a high effective rate, but there's no vaccine that will ever reach 100%. There are some vaccines that have like a 99% effectiveness or like a 94.5, for example, like the COVID-19 vaccines. A lot of them have a 95 to a 90% effectiveness on the overall vaccine, according to trials that they had on humans that had the COVID-19 disease. And so with a vaccine that's 100% effectiveness, they have to do a lot of trials, which that costs a lot of money to do. And lastly, when you're traveling, we can import many diseases. So for example, let's say I go to an international third world country and I can get a disease, but I won't know it and I can spread it around when I come home. And that's something to be aware of if you're going to be traveling to an international country. You should always talk to your doctor about whether you should get some vaccinations before you go on a huge trip, or even if you're gonna be going in-state in the United States, you should always be aware of if one state has an outbreak of something or this state has another outbreak. So you should always be aware of whether you go to a country or you're staying in safe for a vacation. And lastly, on a con on vaccinations is that diseases that target have essentially disappeared. So what that means is that a lot of diseases can go away, and when they make vaccinations for them, and they really don't have the essential use, and a lot of them can be relatively harmless to people, and thus making certain vaccines very unnecessary to use, which is kind of wasting a lot of money on the production companies that make vaccines, like Pfizer and many more companies, which does waste a lot of money and can waste a lot of time on people who are already got sick from the virus or they're not. So to wrap it up, vaccinations has its ups and downs. Many people in today's society talk about vaccinations, which has been a huge uprising today. And with getting vaccinated or not, your health should always be your number one priority. And vaccinations is anyone's decision to have or to not have. And I hope today can really bring you a lesson about vaccinations. Thank you.